The ultimatum. The council chamber stretched wide and tall, built to hold representatives from 47 different species. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human podium, her dark eyes scanning the alien faces that filled the curved rows of seats. Some watched with multiple eyes. Others perceived her through senses she could barely imagine, but all of them looked down at her with the same expression she had learned to recognize over the past 3 years: condescension. The Vryn representative rose from his seat, his scaled body catching the artificial light. High Commander Threx was nearly 3 meters tall, his reptilian features sharp and proud. His voice echoed through the translation systems that hummed throughout the chamber. "The matter is simple," Threx announced. "Humanity occupies territories in what you call the Kuiper Belt. These territories contain resources that rightfully belong to the Vryn Dominion by ancient claim. We discovered these mineral deposits 400 cycles before humanity even left their birth world. We demand immediate withdrawal and compensation for illegal mining operations." Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice calm. "High Commander, humanity discovered and settled these territories through our own exploration. We found no evidence of any Vryn presence, no markers, no claims filed with the Council. The resources we extract feed billions of people across our colonies." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Your ignorance of proper claim procedures does not invalidate our rights. The Council has reviewed the historical records. Our ancient surveys confirm Vryn presence in that region. You will withdraw, or we will enforce our claim through legal military action." The Colothian mediator, a floating crystalline being named Seventh Harmony, pulsed with soft blue light. "The Council recognizes the Vryn claim as legitimate according to historical precedent. However, we also recognize human settlement rights. We propose a compromise. Humanity may maintain 3 colonies but must cede mining rights and pay restitution fees." Sarah shook her head. "Those colonies depend on those mining operations for survival. Without them, we'd have to evacuate 40,000 people. That's not a compromise. That's surrender." "Then you refuse the Council's wisdom?" Threx's voice carried a dangerous edge. "I refuse to abandon our people based on a claim that was never properly filed or enforced for centuries," Sarah replied. Threx spread his clawed hands. "Then we invoke Article 17 of the Council Charter. The Vryn Dominion formally declares proportional conflict with humanity to resolve this territorial dispute." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Sarah had studied the Council's conflict resolution system extensively. It was designed to prevent actual war. 2 parties could engage in limited military action with strict rules. Pre-approved casualty caps, designated battle zones, no attacks on civilian populations, and mandatory arbitration after the casualty limit was reached. For the past 2,000 galactic cycles, this system had kept the peace. Wars were more like sporting matches, with clear winners and losers, but minimal actual destruction. Seventh Harmony pulsed again. "The Council sets the casualty limit at 10,000 military personnel for each side. The conflict zone is restricted to the disputed Kuiper Belt territories and their immediate approaches. Civilian infrastructure may not be targeted. Do both parties accept these terms?" Threx bowed his head. "The Vryn Dominion accepts." All eyes turned to Sarah. This was the moment where junior species always backed down. The thought of losing 10,000 people was unbearable to most civilizations. They would negotiate, compromise, accept whatever terms preserved lives. Sarah took a slow breath. "I need to consult with my government. I request a recess of 48 hours. Seventh Harmony agreed, and the session ended. Sarah returned to her quarters and opened a quantum-encrypted channel to Earth. The next 48 hours saw emergency sessions across every human government. The UN Parliament debated for 16 hours straight. Military commanders presented options. Civilians protested in the streets. Media networks analyzed every angle. But in the end, the decision was made. When Sarah returned to the council chamber, she carried a sealed data chip. The chamber fell silent as she approached the central podium. The United Nations of Earth has considered the Vrin ultimatum and the Council's proposed conflict parameters, Sarah began. Her voice was steady, but those who knew her well could hear the tension beneath. We reject both. Shock rippled through the chamber. Threx rose from his seat, his scales flushing darker. You reject the Council's authority? We reject the pretense that what you call war bears any resemblance to actual conflict, Sarah said. She inserted the data chip into the podium, and her words began broadcasting across every council channel, every galactic network, every communication system within range. For 2,000 years you have played at war. You have sanitized it, limited it, made it predictable and safe. You have forgotten what war truly is. Ambassador Chen, you are out of order, Seventh Harmony began. Sarah ignored the interruption. The Vrin Dominion has threatened our colonies. They have threatened our people. We will not play by rules designed to protect aggressors from the consequences of aggression. Humanity has spoken, and our answer is this. We will defend what is ours. We will not accept casualty limits. We will not accept restricted battle zones. We will not accept any constraint on our right to protect our citizens. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Threx's roar cut through the noise. You dare threaten the Vrin Dominion? You are a minor species with a handful of primitive ships. We could crush you within a standard cycle. Sarah looked directly at him. Then try. She tapped the podium again, and a human military general appeared on the holographic display. General Marcus Rodriguez, commander of Earth's combined fleet, spoke in a voice that carried the weight of centuries of human warfare. This message is for the Vrin Dominion and any other species considering aggression against humanity. We do not want war. We will always prefer peace. But if you bring war to us, we will fight it on our terms, not yours. We will use every weapon, every tactic, every strategy developed over 10,000 years of human conflict. We will not stop when we reach a casualty number. We will stop when you can no longer threaten us or anyone else ever again. The general paused, and his next words sent chills through every being in the chamber. The Vrin have 1 week to withdraw their ultimatum and recognize our territorial rights. If they do not, we will consider it an act of war. And may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on your souls, because we will not. The transmission ended. Sarah stood alone at the podium, facing hundreds of shocked faces. Threx's voice shook with rage. The Council will sanction you for this. You will be expelled. Your species will be isolated. Perhaps, Sarah acknowledged. But our people will be safe. That's all that matters. She turned and walked out of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind her, the Council erupted in debate. Some called for immediate sanctions. Others demanded military intervention to stop humanity before they could act. A few, the older species who still remembered what real war looked like, said nothing at all. They simply watched the human ambassador leave and felt a cold certainty in their hearts. The galaxy was about to remember something it had spent 2 millennia trying to forget, and humanity was about to teach them a lesson written in fire and blood across 10,000 years of their violent history. In the Vrin Dominion, High Commander Threx received the transmission and laughed. A minor species threatening the might of the Vrin. It was absurd. He immediately ordered the Third Fleet to deploy to Titan, humanity's largest colony in the Kuiper Belt. 200 ships, the finest in the Vrin arsenal. It would be enough to crush the humans in a matter of days. Or so he thought. The lesson begins. High Commander Threx stood on the bridge of the Dominant Claw, his flagship and pride of the Vrin Third Fleet. 200 warships surrounded him in formation, their shields glowing with defensive energy. Around him, his officers worked their stations with efficient precision. They had trained for this moment, though none of them expected it would be against humans. Status report, Threx commanded. His tactical officer, a younger Vryn named Kellis, consulted his displays. We are approaching the Titan colony, Commander. Scans show the settlement is still active. Population readings indicate approximately 40,000 humans present. Threx nodded. The humans would surrender quickly once they saw his fleet. It was always the same with minor species. They talked bravely, then folded when faced with real military power. The Council's rules existed precisely because most civilizations could not stomach actual casualties. Open a channel to the colony, Threx ordered. The communication officer worked his console, then frowned. Commander, we are receiving no response. The colony's communication arrays are active, but they are not answering our hails. Cowards hiding in their holes, Threx muttered. Very well. Kellis, scan for their defensive fleet. They must have ships protecting the colony. Kellis worked his sensors, his scaled brow furrowing in confusion. Commander, I detect no active military vessels in the immediate area. There is significant debris from what appears to be destroyed mining equipment, but no powered ships. Threx felt the first stirring of unease. Where were their ships? Even a minor species should have some defensive presence. Expand the scan range. Check for cloaked vessels. Negative on cloaking signatures, Commander. Wait, I am detecting power fluctuations in some of the debris field. It could be reactor leakage from destroyed ships. Or it could be ships pretending to be debris, Threx said slowly. Old instincts, honed over decades of military service, began screaming warnings. But that was impossible. Humanity did not have cloaking technology. The Council had verified their technological level. They were primitive, derivative, nothing special. Deploy the landing forces, Threx ordered. Begin occupation of the colony, but keep the fleet on high alert. Something feels wrong. The Vryn fleet moved into orbital positions around Titan. Troop carriers began their descent toward the colony's main habitation domes. Threx watched the displays, waiting for something to happen. It did. Commander, Kelly shouted. Power signatures activating throughout the debris field. Multiple contacts, close range. The debris exploded into motion. What Threx had thought were destroyed hulks suddenly blazed with reactor power. 30 human warships, cold and dark for hours, came alive at point-blank range. They had been drifting, tumbling like dead metal, waiting. Evasive maneuvers, Threx roared. Return fire! But it was already too late. The human ships had positioned themselves perfectly, each one targeting a specific Vryn vessel, and the weapons they unleashed were nothing like what the Vryn expected. Railguns fired solid slugs at relativistic speeds, punching through shields designed to disperse energy weapons. Nuclear-pumped lasers, crude but devastating, burned through armor in sustained bursts, and strangest of all, simple kinetic kill vehicles. Dumb chunks of dense metal accelerated to extreme velocities, slammed into Vryn ships like the fist of an angry god. The dominant claw shuddered as 3 railgun slugs tore through its port side. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge. Kellis's station exploded in a shower of sparks, and the young officer fell backward, his chest burned and smoking. Damage report, Threx demanded, gripping his command chair as another impact rocked the ship. Port shields collapsed. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We have lost main propulsion. Through the view screen, Threx watched his fleet die. The human ships moved with frightening coordination, targeting propulsion and weapon systems with surgical precision. But they did not stop there. When a Vryn ship was disabled, the humans did not move on to the next target. They continued firing until the ship broke apart, until its reactor went critical, until there was nothing left but expanding clouds of gas and debris. No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy. Launch all fighters, Threx ordered. Target the human command ship. The Vryn fighters screamed out of their bays, hundreds of small craft swarming toward the human vessels. But the humans were ready for that too. Point defense systems, crude but effective, filled space with a wall of metal. The fighters flew into a storm of shrapnel. Most died before firing a single shot. A human ship appeared on the main view screen, close enough for Threx to see its scarred hull. It was not elegant like Vryn vessels. It was a blunt instrument, covered in weapons and armor, built for one purpose only. Painted on its side in human script was a name, Gettysburg. "Incoming transmission," the communication officer gasped. "On screen," Threx said. A human face appeared, a woman with gray hair tied back and eyes like cold steel. She wore a military uniform and spoke in a calm, measured voice that was somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. "This is Captain Elizabeth Harding of the UNSC Gettysburg. You have 30 seconds to order your troop carriers to abort their landing and return to your ships. After that, we will destroy them." Threx's hands clenched. "You cannot threaten—" 20 seconds, Captain Harding said, as if he had not spoken. Threx looked at his tactical display. He had lost half his fleet in less than 10 minutes. His flagship was crippled, and his troop carriers were defenseless targets hanging in Titan's atmosphere. "Recall the carriers," he said quietly. 10 seconds, Harding said. "I said recall them," Threx roared. The order went out. The troop carriers aborted their landing and turned back toward orbit. Harding watched her own displays, then nodded once. "Smart choice," she said. "Now, here is what happens next. Your fleet is going to turn around and limp back to Vryn space. You will report exactly what happened here, and you will tell your leaders that this is what happens when you threaten humanity." "The Council will hear of this," Threx said, his voice shaking with rage and shame. "You violated every law of warfare. You gave no warning. You took no prisoners." "We gave you a week's warning," Harding interrupted. "You chose to ignore it. As for prisoners, you can surrender your entire fleet right now if you want. We will take you prisoner. Or you can leave. Your choice. You have 60 seconds. Threx looked around his ruined bridge. Half his officers were dead. His ship would take months to repair. His fleet was shattered, and the human captain was offering him a choice that was no choice at all: surrender and face humiliation, or retreat and face humiliation. "We are leaving," Threx said. "Wise decision," Harding replied. "And High Commander, this was the easy part. We were defending our home. If you make us come to you, it will be much worse." The transmission ended. The surviving Vryn ships, fewer than 80 of the original 200, limped away from Titan. Behind them, the human fleet remained in formation, weapons still hot, ready to finish the job if needed. On the Gettysburg's bridge, Captain Harding watched them go. Her tactical officer, a young lieutenant named Chen, the ambassador's nephew, spoke quietly. "They are running, Captain. Should we pursue?" "No," Harding said. "Let them go. Let them report what happened here. Let them tell the galaxy exactly what we are capable of." "Do you think they will surrender now, ma'am?" Harding shook her head. "No, they are too proud. They will escalate. They will send their main fleet. And that is exactly what we want." The lieutenant looked confused. "Ma'am," Harding pulled up a star map showing Vryn space. "We just bloodied their nose. That will make them angry, make them commit fully. And when they do, when they send everything they have to crush us, we are going to teach the entire galaxy a lesson they will never forget." She touched a control, and the display changed to show dozens of human fleet positions, supply lines, weapon production facilities. The entire human military infrastructure, built up over 23 years of cautious galactic membership, was now pivoting to a single purpose. "They think they know war because they have fought under council rules for 2,000 years, Harding said. "They are about to learn what war really means. And by the time we are done, no one in this galaxy will ever threaten humanity again." On Titan, 40,000 colonists emerged from their shelters and looked up at the sky where the battle had raged. They did not yet know how decisive the victory had been, but they knew that when humanity said it would defend them, it meant it. The message went out across all human colonies. We will protect you, no matter the cost, no matter the enemy. Earth has spoken, and the galaxy will learn to listen. Total war. The council chamber was in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other across the curved rows of seats. Seventh Harmony pulsed with agitated red light, trying to restore order. Ambassador Chen stood at the human podium, calm and unmoved, while voices demanded her species be sanctioned, expelled, destroyed. 12,000 Vryn dead, a council member shouted. You exceeded your casualty limit. We never accepted your casualty limit, Sarah replied. We made that clear before any shots were fired. A Colothian diplomat rippled with anger. You ambushed them. You pretended to be debris. That is dishonorable. It is called tactics, Sarah said. Perhaps you should remember what those are. High Commander Threx, his scaled face marked with fresh scars from his ship's destruction, pointed a clawed finger at her. The Vryn Dominion will not tolerate this insult. We are mobilizing our entire navy. We will crush your primitive species and remind the galaxy what happens to those who defy the rightful order. Sarah met his gaze. Then come. But remember this moment. Remember that we gave you a chance to walk away. What happens next is on you. The transmission she sent next was not to the council, but to every human colony, every ship, every outpost scattered across space. The message was simple. We are at war. On Earth, the UN Parliament met in emergency session. President Victoria Okonkwo stood before the assembled representatives and spoke words that would echo through history. For 23 years, we have been careful. We have been measured. We have tried to fit into the galaxy's rules, but now those rules are being used against us. The Vryn Dominion has declared war, and the Council supports them. We stand alone. So now we will show them what it means when humanity goes to war. The War Powers Act passed with an overwhelming majority. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource extraction facility received new orders. Build ships. Build weapons. Build ammunition. The entire human economy pivoted toward a single goal: survival. The transformation was terrifying in its speed. Civilian transport ships were retrofitted with weapons. Mining lasers became cutting beams. Orbital construction facilities that had built habitats now produced warships. And everywhere, volunteers lined up to join the military. Admiral James Kowalski stood in the command center on Luna, watching the displays that showed human forces across known space. He was a veteran of the Mars Rebellion 30 years ago, one of the last humans to have fought in a real war before Earth unified. Now he was commander of all human forces, and his job was to defeat an enemy with 10 times humanity's ships and 100 times its experience in galactic warfare. Status? He asked his chief of staff. Colonel Martinez pulled up the tactical display. The Vryn are mobilizing their main fleet. Intelligence estimates between 2,000 and 3,000 ships. They are gathering at their primary naval base in the Thraxis system. We expect them to move within 2 weeks. And our forces? 400 combat-capable ships. Another 200 in various stages of construction. We are outnumbered 5-1 at minimum. Kowalski nodded slowly. The numbers were bad, but numbers were not everything. And our special operations teams? Martinez smiled grimly. In position, awaiting orders. Send the signal, Kowalski said. Operation Scorched Earth is a go. Across Vryn space, human special forces teams that had been infiltrating for weeks received their orders. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They were intelligence operatives, saboteurs, and hackers, and their targets were not military installations. On the industrial world of Vryn Prime, a fusion reactor supplying power to 3 massive shipyards experienced a catastrophic malfunction. The explosion was visible from orbit. The shipyards went dark. construction on 40 capital ships came to a halt. On Kelrath, a mining colony producing the rare metals necessary for Vryn shield generators, the entire extraction facility's computer system crashed. It would take weeks to restore. Shield production dropped by 70%. On Thex, a major supply hub, automated cargo systems began routing supplies to the wrong destinations. Food meant for military bases ended up at civilian ports. Ammunition shipments disappeared into bureaucratic limbo. The confusion would take months to untangle. None of these actions killed anyone directly, but they crippled the Vryn war machine in ways that shooting at ships never could, and they violated every council law about warfare. The council convened another emergency session. This time, other species joined the Vryn in condemning humanity. "You attack civilian infrastructure," a representative accused. "You target non-combatants." Admiral Kowalski, appearing via hologram, responded calmly. "We have targeted industrial and logistical facilities that support military operations. 0 civilian casualties. Can the Vryn say the same about their intention to occupy our colonies?" The council had no good answer for that. Meanwhile, the Vryn main fleet finally assembled and began its march toward human space. High Fleet Commander Zareth, a grizzled veteran of 200 cycles, commanded the armada from his massive dreadnought. He had studied the humans' ambush at Titan. Clever, yes, but tricks only worked once. "We will approach cautiously," Zareth told his officers. "We will maintain formation. We will sweep all debris fields before entering any system. The humans cannot hide from us this time." He was right. When the Vryn fleet arrived at the Mars system, the human fleet was waiting for them in plain sight. 400 ships arranged in defensive formation around humanity's first colony world. No tricks, no ambushes, a straight fight. Zareth smiled. "They have learned to face us with honor. Very well. All ships, attack formation. We end this now." The Vryn fleet advanced. The human fleet held position. When the range closed to firing distance, both sides opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons and missiles filled the space between the two fleets. Ships on both sides began taking hits. But the humans had one advantage the Vryn had not anticipated. They had nothing left to lose. Every captain knew that if they lost this battle, Mars would fall. Earth would be next. Their families, their species, their entire civilization hung in the balance. So they fought with a desperation that the Vryn, who still expected a negotiated peace once they demonstrated superiority, could not match. Human ships, damaged and dying, rammed Vryn vessels rather than retreat. Captains targeted Vryn command ships even when it meant exposing themselves to concentrated fire. And when ships lost weapons and shields, they became weapons themselves. Accelerating to maximum velocity and crashing into enemy formations like kinetic missiles. Zareth watched in horror as a human destroyer, its hull breached and burning, crashed directly into his dreadnought's bridge tower. The impact killed 300 Vryn, including half his senior staff. His ship survived, but barely. "They are insane," his tactical officer shouted. "They fight like animals." "No," Zareth said quietly, watching another human ship sacrifice itself to destroy a Vryn carrier. "They fight like people who understand what this war truly means, and we just made a terrible mistake." But the real shock came when the battle seemed to be turning in the Vryn favor. They still had superior numbers. They were beginning to surround the human fleet. Victory seemed certain. That was when the mines activated. The humans had spent weeks seeding the Mars orbital space with thousands of small nuclear devices, each one hidden in the asteroid field, each one dormant and undetectable. At a signal from Admiral Kowalski, they all detonated simultaneously. The explosions sent millions of fragments, rocks, and debris hurtling through space at tremendous speeds. The Vryn formation, packed tight for maximum firepower, became a death trap. Ships collided with asteroids. Shrapnel tore through hulls. The careful formations dissolved into chaos. The human fleet, positioned specifically to avoid the worst of the debris field, pressed their advantage. They tore into the confused Vryn ships with renewed fury, and this time they had help. From Luna, from Earth's orbital platforms, from hidden bases throughout the solar system, missiles launched. Thousands of them. Cheap, simple rockets with nuclear warheads. The Vryn point defense systems, designed to stop sophisticated guided missiles, struggled against the sheer volume. Many got through. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Vryn fleet was shattered. Zareth, his dreadnought crippled and drifting, finally gave the order to retreat. Of the 3,000 ships he had brought to Mars, fewer than 800 remained combat-capable. The human fleet had lost 230 ships, but Mars was safe, Earth was safe, and the galaxy was watching. In the council chamber, silence reigned as the battle reports came in. The Vryn, a top military power, had been defeated. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer determination and a willingness to pay any price for victory. Seventh Harmony pulsed with dim, uncertain light. This cannot continue. The casualties are unprecedented. We must broker peace. But Ambassador Chen shook her head. The Vryn started this war. We will finish it, and we will finish it in a way that ensures no one ever makes this mistake again. On Earth, Admiral Kowalski was already planning the next phase. The defense was over. Now came the offensive. Now humanity would take the war to Vryn space itself. And the galaxy was about to learn that when humans said total war, they meant it absolutely. The price of peace. The Vryn Grand Council chamber was nothing like the elegant galactic council that Sarah Chen knew. This was a war room, ancient stone walls covered with battle honors from thousands of years of conquest. Around a massive circular table sat the 12 Grand Counselors who ruled the Dominion, and for the first time in living memory, they were arguing about surrender. We have lost the 3rd Fleet, the 7th Fleet, and now the Grand Armada, Counselor Vrex said, his old scales dulled with age and stress. Our shipyards are destroyed or sabotaged. Our supply lines are in chaos, and the humans are now attacking our outer colonies. We still have the home fleet, another counselor argued. We can defend our core worlds. High Fleet Commander Zareth, summoned to give his military assessment, spoke the truth they did not want to hear. The home fleet numbers 400 ships. The humans have proven they can defeat forces 5 times their size through tactics we cannot counter. If they reach our core worlds, we cannot stop them. The silence that followed was heavy with fear. Then we offer terms, Counselor Vrex said finally. We withdraw all claims on human territory. We pay reparations. We accept whatever the Council mediates. A message was sent through diplomatic channels. The Vryn Dominion, proud conquerors of a dozen species, offered peace. They offered everything humanity had originally asked for and more. Admiral Kowalski read the offer in his command center on Luna. Colonel Martinez stood beside him, waiting for orders. Well, Martinez asked, they are offering everything we wanted. Kowalski shook his head slowly. No, they are offering everything we wanted 3 months ago, before they killed 47,000 of our people, before they forced us to transform our entire civilization into a war machine, before they made us into something we did not want to be. So what do we tell them? We tell them the war ends on our terms, not theirs, Kowalski said. He composed a response that would shock the galaxy. Unconditional surrender or the war continues. On Earth, the response was not universally supported. Protests erupted in major cities. Peace movements that had been quiet during the defense of Mars now found their voice. The UN Parliament held heated debates that stretched for days. Dr. Michael Osei, a prominent ethics professor, spoke to a crowd of 50,000 protesters in London. "We have become what we fought against. We are demanding unconditional surrender, threatening to destroy civilian infrastructure, occupying their worlds. When did we become conquerors?" But President Okonkwo addressed the same concerns in a speech to Parliament. "I understand the moral weight of what we are doing. I feel it every day. But we cannot stop halfway. The Vryn started this war expecting us to follow rules that protected them from consequences. If we stop now, we prove those rules work. Every aggressive species in the galaxy will learn that they can threaten humanity. And the worst that will happen is they have to apologize and pay some reparations. We must make the cost of aggression so high that no one ever risks it again." The vote was close, 347 to 312. The war would continue until the Vryn surrendered unconditionally. Admiral Kowalski ordered the human fleets to advance into Vryn core space, but he also sent a secondary message directly to the Vryn population, bypassing their government entirely. Human hackers had cracked Vryn communication networks weeks ago. Now they used that access to broadcast truth. On every Vryn world, on every display screen, in every home, a message appeared. It showed the comfortable estates where the Grand Counselors lived. It showed their families, safe and well-fed. Then it showed Vryn soldiers, dying in the cold of space. It showed food shortages in outer colonies while the core worlds feasted. It showed the truth that the Vryn government had hidden. Their leaders were sending millions to die to protect their pride, not their people. The message ended with a simple statement in the Vryn language. "Your leaders chose this war. You can choose to end it." The effect was immediate. On Kelrath, Vryn workers refused to return to the sabotaged mines. On Thex, civilian shipping captains refused to transport military supplies. On 3 outer worlds, local governments declared independence from the Dominion rather than continue supporting a war they could not win. The Vryn Grand Council watched their empire fracture. Councillor Vrex stood before his colleagues with his head bowed. "We have no choice. We must accept their terms." But High Commander Threx, his pride still burning from his defeat at Titan, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "We still have the home fleet. We can defend our birth world. Make them pay such a price that they will accept peace on honorable terms." "At what cost?" Zareth asked quietly. "How many more must die for honor?" The argument that followed split the Grand Council, but in the end, fear won over pride. The surrender offer was sent. Admiral Kowalski received it while his fleet was 3 days from the Vryn home system. He read the document carefully. It offered complete demilitarization, reparations, territorial concessions, everything humanity had demanded. "Do we accept, sir?" Martinez asked. Kowalski looked at the star map. Behind him, 400 ships waited for orders. Ahead, the Vryn homeworld held billions of people who had never wanted this war. He thought about the 47,000 humans who had died. He thought about the choice every leader in history had faced. When is victory complete, and when does it become vengeance? "Send this response," Kowalski said. "We accept the surrender. But occupation forces will remain on Vryn worlds for 10 years to ensure compliance. Vryn military assets will be reduced to system defense forces only. And the Vryn will pay reparations not just to humanity, but to every species they have conquered or subjugated in the past century. If they accept these terms, the shooting stops now." The Vryn accepted. They had no choice. 3 weeks later, human Marines landed on the Vryn homeworld. The population watched fearfully as transport ships descended, expecting the slaughter that usually followed military occupation in their own history. Instead, the humans brought food supplies, medical equipment, and engineers to help repair damaged infrastructure. Colonel Sarah Morrison, commander of the occupation forces, gave an address to the Vryn people that was broadcast across their world. "We did not want this war. We do not want to rule you. We want to ensure this never happens again. We will help you rebuild. We will help you create a government that serves all Vryn, not just the elite. And when we are certain you will never again threaten peaceful species, we will leave." On Earth, the protests continued. Thousands believed the occupation was wrong, that humanity had become what it fought against. But thousands more believed it was necessary, that true peace required ensuring the defeated enemy could not rise again. President Okonkwo visited the memorial wall that now stood in New York, bearing the names of all who had died in the war. She stood before it in the rain, reading names, and wept. A reporter asked her if the price had been worth it. "Ask me in 10 years, she said. "When Vryn children grow up in a society that does not glorify conquest, when the galaxy has learned that aggression has consequences. When our children can live without fear of war, then maybe I will know if we made the right choice." In the council chamber, Ambassador Chen addressed the assembled species for the first time since the war ended. Many had called for her removal, for sanctions against humanity. But many others now looked at humans with new respect, tinged with fear. "We did not start this war," Sarah said, "but we finished it. And we finished it in a way that some of you find disturbing. You accuse us of being brutal, of being disproportionate, of violating the norms of civilized warfare. But your norms protected the aggressor. Your rules made war safe for those who started it. We will not accept a galaxy where might makes right, as long as you follow proper procedures." She paused, looking across the faces of 47 different species. "Humanity proposes new rules. Real collective security, attack one council member, face all of them, mandatory meditation before any military action, and if war does come, let it be swift, total, and decisive. Because prolonged conflict, even civilized conflict, just extends suffering." The debate that followed would last for months. But the galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven that the old rules did not work, and whether the council liked it or not, they would have to change too. In Vryn space, the occupation continued. Human administrators worked alongside Vryn reformers to build new institutions. It was slow, difficult work, but gradually things improved. Food supplies stabilized, democratic assemblies formed, and the Vryn people, freed from the propaganda of their old government, began to see humans not as conquerors, but as unexpected liberators. The price of peace had been high, but perhaps, just perhaps, it would prove to be worth it. New rules. 5 years had passed since the end of the war. The council chamber looked the same curved rows of seats, the same translation systems humming in the background, the same representatives from 47 species. But everything else had changed. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human podium, but she was no longer the junior representative pleading for her species' rights. Now, when she spoke, the galaxy listened. Some species listened because they respected humanity's wisdom. Others listened because they feared humanity's strength. Either way, they listened. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen," Seventh Harmony announced, the crystalline being pulsing with calm blue light. Sarah looked across the assembly. In the Vryn section sat Ambassador Kellis, the same young officer who had served under Threx at Titan. He had survived that battle and now represented a very different Vryn dominion. Beside him sat representatives from the former Vryn subject species, now independent worlds with their own council seats. "Thank you, mediator," Sarah said. 5 years ago, I stood in this chamber and told you that humanity would not play by rules designed to make aggression safe. Many of you condemned us for what followed. You called us brutal, uncivilized, barbaric." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. You were not entirely wrong. War is brutal. War is uncivilized. War is barbaric. For 2,000 years, you tried to pretend otherwise. You created rules and procedures that turned war into a game with referees. And in doing so, you forgot the most important rule of all. War should be so terrible that no one wants to fight it. A Colothian representative rippled with disagreement. We created those rules to minimize suffering, to protect innocent lives. Did you? Sarah challenged. Or did you create rules that let aggressive species gamble on limited wars, knowing the price would never be too high? How many conflicts happened under your system? How many species were bullied into surrender by those willing to push the limits of acceptable casualties? The silence that followed was telling. The truth was that dozens of small wars had erupted over the centuries, precisely because the cost was manageable. Humanity has submitted a proposal to fundamentally change how this council addresses conflict, Sarah continued. I will now present the details. The display behind her lit up with the human proposal. It was radical, and she knew many would resist it. But the galaxy needed to change. First, collective security. An attack on any council member is treated as an attack on all council members. No more individual species being bullied by stronger neighbors. The full weight of the council's combined military forces will respond to aggression. Several representatives began speaking at once. Seventh Harmony pulsed red for order. Second, mandatory mediation. Before any military action, both parties must submit to intensive mediation for a minimum of 6 months. If mediation fails, both sides must publicly explain why they could not reach a peaceful solution. That will take too long, a representative protested. What if we face an immediate threat? If you face an immediate threat, an actual invasion, not a diplomatic dispute, then the collective security provision applies, Sarah replied. The council will defend you, but if you have 6 months to argue about it, it was not an immediate threat. She moved to the third point, knowing it would be the most controversial. Third, if war does come, despite all efforts at peace, it must be total and decisive. No casualty caps, no limited engagements, no rules that protect aggressors from consequences. War must be so costly, so devastating, that every species will do everything possible to avoid it. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted their objections. The Colothian diplomat was on his feet. You want to return to the Dark Ages, to unregulated slaughter. No, Sarah said firmly, her voice cutting through the noise. I want to make the decision to go to war so heavy, so terrifying, that leaders will choose peace every time. Your system made war easy. We want to make it hard. Admiral Kowalski appeared on the display beside her. He had retired from military service but agreed to support the presentation. I have studied galactic history since the current system was established, he said. In 2,000 years, there have been 147 conflicts under Council rules. Total casualties, approximately 12 million beings across all species. In the single war between humanity and the Vryn, casualties exceeded 200,000. But I ask you this. How many of those 147 conflicts would have happened if the leaders knew the price would be total war? Ambassador Kellis rose from his seat. The chamber fell silent, curious to hear the Vryn perspective. I fought at Titan, Kelly said quietly. I watched the humans destroy our fleet in less than an hour. I thought they were monsters. But in the 5 years since, I have watched those same humans help rebuild our worlds. I have watched them teach our people about democracy and rights. I have seen Vryn children who will grow up free of the militarism that defined our species for centuries. He looked directly at Sarah. The humans did not want to be brutal. They did not want to fight total war, but they understood something we had forgotten. If you must fight, fight to win. Fight to end it. Fight to ensure it never happens again. I support their proposal. The statement shocked the assembly. A Vryn supporting the humans who had defeated them. Over the following weeks, the debate continued. Some species strongly supported the human proposal. Others vehemently opposed it. But behind the public debates, something else was happening. Human intelligence operatives had discovered something during the war, and they were finally ready to share it. In a closed session of the Council's Security Committee, Sarah presented classified findings. On the display appeared images of an object discovered drifting in deep space, a probe from outside the galaxy. 3 years ago, a human deep space monitoring station detected this, Sarah explained. We recovered it and spent 2 years analyzing the data. It is a probe from an extragalactic civilization, and the data it contains is disturbing. The images showed a thriving civilization, not unlike the Council species. Then images of war, terrible, total war. Planets burned, billions died, and finally, images of empty space where worlds had once been. This civilization destroyed itself in a war that made our conflict with the Vryn look like a minor skirmish, Sarah said. But before they died, they sent out warning probes. This probe's data suggests they detected something coming toward their galaxy, something that made them fight among themselves over resources and survival, and that something is heading toward our galaxy. The Security Committee members sat in stunned silence. We do not know when it will arrive, Sarah continued. The probe's data is incomplete. It could be 100 years, it could be 1,000, but it is coming, and when it arrives, we need to be ready, not for limited conflicts with casualty caps, not for civilized warfare. We need to be ready for total war against an enemy that will not negotiate and will not surrender. Seventh Harmony pulsed with dim, frightened light. Why did you not share this sooner? Because we needed to know the galaxy could change, Sarah replied. If you could not accept that your old system was broken, how could you accept the truth about what is coming? The Vryn War was not just about defending our colonies, it was about waking the galaxy up. It was about proving that when the real threat arrives, we can fight as one and win. The information leaked within days, as Sarah knew it would. Across the galaxy, species reacted with fear, denial, and eventually determination. The debate about the human proposal took on new urgency. 3 months later, the Council voted. The human proposal passed with a 2/3 majority. The galaxy had new rules, real collective security, mandatory mediation, and the understanding that war, if it must happen, would be total. But the proposal included one more element, one that Sarah had saved for last: the creation of a unified Council Defense Force with shared command, shared resources, and shared purpose. And at humanity's nomination, Admiral Kowalski was appointed as its first Supreme Commander. We are not doing this for power, President Okonkwo said in her address to Earth's citizens, responding to protesters who still criticized humanity's role. We are doing this because we know what is coming. We are doing this because we remember what war costs. And we are doing this because when the real enemy arrives, we need to be ready. On a Vryn world, in what had once been a grand military academy and was now a school for peaceful conflict resolution, young Vryn students studied human history. They learned about the world wars, about the Cold War, about humanity's long, bloody journey toward peace. Their teacher, an elderly Vryn who had fought in the war, explained the lesson. Humans learned the hard way what war truly means. They paid in blood for thousands of years to learn that peace is better. When they came to the stars, they tried to forget those lessons. They tried to fit into the galaxy's comfortable system. But when we forced them to remember, they taught us what we had forgotten. War is not a game. War is not politics by other means. War is horror, and the only way to prevent it is to make everyone understand that horror. In the council chamber, Sarah Chen stood before the memorial wall that had been erected, bearing the names of all who died in the Vryn War. human and Vryn alike. A young Vryn approached her, a student visiting from one of the rebuilt worlds. "Ambassador Chen," the young Vryn said hesitantly, "may I ask you a question?" "Of course. Was it worth it? All those deaths? All that destruction? Was it worth it?" Sarah looked at the names on the wall. She thought about the 47,000 humans who had died defending their homes. She thought about the Vryn who had died following orders from leaders who saw war as a political tool. She thought about the galaxy that had changed because of their sacrifice. "Ask me again in 100 years," Sarah said quietly. "When your grandchildren live in a galaxy that understands the cost of conflict and works harder to avoid it. When the threat we know is coming arrives and finds us ready to face it together. Ask me then if what we bought with their lives was enough." The young Vryn nodded and walked away. Sarah remained, looking at the names. Behind her, through the massive windows of the council chamber, she could see Earth shining blue and beautiful among the stars. Around it, ships from 47 species patrolled together, training together, preparing together. The galaxy had learned what humanity tried to teach it. War was not a game. War was not safe. War was not civilized. War was the failure of everything that made civilization worthwhile. And the only way to prevent it was to make sure everyone remembered that truth. The galaxy had spoken, not with the gentle words of diplomats playing at peace while preparing for comfortable wars, but with the unified voice of species who finally understood. True peace required the willingness to fight total war, and the wisdom to do everything possible to avoid it. Humanity had taught them that lesson. And when the stars themselves turned hostile, when the threat from beyond arrived, the galaxy would be ready. Because now they understood what war truly means, and they would never forget again.